Well, we're delighted to be here today with Sönke Iwersen, who, with Michael Verfurden of Handelsblatt, the top German financial newspaper and rival to the Financial Times, has written a very important and gripping book called The Tesla Files, which is based on a huge number of documents provided by a whistleblower, which gives an unprecedented insight into the workings of Elon Musk's electric car company. So, Sönke, welcome to Media Confidential. Tell us first about the circumstances in which you got this huge data set and how you approached the task of both verifying its provenance and also turning it into a book.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me. It was a great bit of luck at first. I get this call in November 22 from my colleague in Japan, actually. And I say, well, why is he calling me? And he says, there's a guy who called him who claims to be a Tesla employee in Norway and who claims that he has all this data and the data is freely accessible inside. And with data, I mean customer data, employee data, personal information on every single of the 100,000 workers at Tesla. And he said, I can't say if this is true, but if it is, then you have to do this. I can't do this from Japan. I said, okay, look, I don't think this can be real either, but let me talk to him. And so we exchanged he wanted the guy, the unknown, the anonymous, was anonymous and wanted to remain so. So I had to install an app called Threema, one of the signal rivals, but I think probably the best, the most anonymous one. And the next morning we talked, and that's what he said, that anything at Tesla is accessible to anybody. And with anything, I mean the personal data of all of employees, also their wages, their social security numbers.
Which, by the way, just to underline, is pretty incredible because Tesla is probably the most secretive company in America, maybe a bit like Apple, but not a company that is easily penetrated.
Exactly. Tesla was a complete black box. And at that time, it's hard to think of it now, but Elon Musk was a titan, an icon, a visionary. In November 22, he really, for a lot of people, he was the greatest businessman on earth, and he might have been. I wouldn't even doubt that at that time.
Certainly the richest at 250 billion plus.
Exactly, and he's Silicon Valley. I mean, he's started his job in his his businesses in Silicon Valley, so he knew exactly about data, how important data is, and we knew that he was very secretive. So the idea that anybody at Tesla could access anything was completely ridiculous. Of course, I didn't tell that the business, you don't tell a source that what he's saying is ridiculous. But I remain skeptical.
Right. But how did you make sure that this information was real, trustworthy?
That was a long process. During the first call, the first minutes of the call, the phone buzzed and he sent over the first couple of files. It was Excel sheets. And I open it while I'm talking to him and say, okay, this is 70,000. You scroll down and you can't get to the end. And it's got the information, the names, the telephone numbers, private addresses, social security numbers of everybody. And I say, well, if this is true, this is incredible. I mean, just having the data, not even what's in the data, but that anybody could have this data is incredible. So that was Friday late afternoon, and I had to tell him, well, it's almost 5 now. I have to pick up my daughter from the kita, the kindergarten. And so over the weekend we chatted some more, and then the next morning, the Monday morning, we called again, and then I called over Michael, the co-author. He's in my investigative team. And I said, take a look at this. And he sits down and his eyes go big like this and say, oh, this can't be. His first reaction was, this is impossible. It's just ridiculous. But if it is true, That's amazing.
Yeah, but just hold on. Obviously, getting people's addresses and phone numbers and social security numbers is interesting, but that's not the book.
No.
Give us the kind of meat that you spotted, the real stuff that you went where your eyes did pop out.
The real stuff then came when I met him, so I had to convince him after a couple of weeks.
You went up to Norway.
I went up to Norway. I had to convince him to do that, and then because our lawyers always said, "Well, how do you know that's not fake?" And then he demonstrated to me that he fished it out of this system inside Tesla. He just opened the laptop and started searching, and all the data seemed to be there. All the data was there, and it was like Googling inside. Whatever you searched, something came up, and then you could open it. So the really, really important stuff was, of course, the autopilot, because everybody knew, I think, the autopilot is the central case of Tesla, this autonomous driving, the promise, that's his biggest promise, Musk's biggest promise, that one day, actually pretty soon in the future, if you believe Musk, you'll be able to get in your car, not behind the wheel, but in the back seat, and tell your car, I want to go here or there, and your car will drive off, and in the back you play with your children, read a book, sleep, whatever you like, the car will take you there. And in the files, we found thousands of complaints of customers who said they were scared of their cars. Their cars had accelerated by themselves. People who drove their children to school, and on the school parking lot, this car suddenly veered off and almost hit another child, crashed into a wall. Then there was something called phantom braking, which is unintended. The first is unintended acceleration, and the opposite of that is unintended braking. We had reports in the Tesla files of people telling customer support, I was in a tunnel and the car came to a standstill, and so all the cars behind me crashed into me. And we had the responses of Tesla saying, that must be your mistake. They never said anything was wrong with autopilot or with their software. And as we continued, we then came across and met widows. It was usually men who drove the cars, and the word widows who were told by the police, yeah, your husband was in a car crash. And then as it was investigated, it came out, it was a clear road. There was no rain, there was sunshine, no traffic, and the guy drove his car, his €100,000 car, into a tree. And the guy hadn't had an accident in 15 years or so. And sometimes even worse, the police comes, or the fire department comes there and tries to open the car, but the door handles, I don't know if I'm sure you know, they retract. It was something that Elon Musk insisted on against, as we later found out, against the advice of his own technicians, that the door handles retract into the car. So when the fire department comes and tries to, put their big thing and try to open the doors, they can't, because it's retracted and they don't open without electricity. So the fire department itself watches the guy burn to death. And yeah, we had lots of talks like that. That was really the quintessence, the worst that we came across.
So I'm interested in how Tesla responded and what measures they took against you, because they can't have been pleased that you had this information and were publishing it.
Yes, they weren't pleased at all. All this process that I just described, it took 6 months for us to be sure what we have is actual real. And then so from November to May, and in May 2023, we sent off, as any good journalist will do, the questions to Tesla. It was a row of 65 questions. And we gave them a week to reply. And we had another week, like in a buffer, because we knew when we wanted to come out. We said, let's give them a week. If they need another week, fine. And they responded with a threat. They said, the data that you have there, you got it from a disgruntled former employee who stole it, and you must not use it. Instead, you must send it back, and then you must delete it from your servers, and then you must...
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Exactly what you expect.
And if you use this, we will sue you. And our lawyers were very, very happy with that, because if they would have said, that's fake news, the data is fake, or anything like that, it would have been a different story. It would have taken us...
Effectively, they confirmed the veracity of the documents.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And since then, we haven't heard a peep of them.
So they haven't tried to sue you
No.
at all?
No.
Have they put you under any kind of surveillance? Did you feel threatened by them in other ways?
No. But what happened was 6 days after the first article came out, the whistleblower's home was raided by the Norwegian police. And the Norwegian police was instigated by... Tesla had made them do this. Tesla had said there's a thief there and you have to immediately raid this man because it's danger in progress, crime in process. And they took all his electronics, his iPhones, everything he had. And there's ongoing litigation between those two, although he has won the last 2 rounds. And but Tesla is still fighting him, and it's an ongoing thing even a couple of years later. But we ourselves, I never had a van following me or anything like that. A colleague of mine said...
That's disappointing.
Not even an autonomous vehicle.
Not even that. Somebody found the status report of the Cybertruck, which was not out at that moment. And at that time, the Cybertruck was the hottest product, according to Musk himself, the hottest product ever built, the best product I have ever built. That's what he deemed the Cybertruck to be. And I think it was Vincenz who found this PowerPoint presentation. Status report Cybertruck January 22nd, 2022. And I'm not a tech guy and not a car guy, but it was in the red light, red, yellow, green type of... If green is good, yellow is questionable, red is really bad. The whole report was yellow and red. So we knew right away that something, just from the colors. And then we went through the report and says, okay, braking is a problem. The car does this and this badly. Accelerating is a problem because the back breaks out. And if you drive faster than 30 miles per hour, the steering wheel starts to shake. All these different kinds of things. And then, I think it was Michael who found the tweet. A day later, just 1 day later. This report is given to Musk. We knew that because, and imagine, again, this is a report stamped highly confidential, only to be viewable under NDA, after signing NDAs. And a guy, a service technician, the lowest ranked person in the whole Tesla world, opens up his laptop and just picks it out and can copy it, can print it, can sell it, anything. So we have this report, and a day later, Musk tweets, I've just tried out the new Cybertruck prototype. It's awesome.
That's shocking, Zunder. But what I find even more shocking is that there seems to be no proper security within the company for handling all this data, and it's instantly accessible. And we're talking about one of the tech geniuses of the world, Elon Musk. How do you explain this?
That's the, $100 million question?
That's what I'm paid to do, Zunder.
We don't even pay him that much.
Yes. We never found an answer, a real answer to that. We know that now it's different. No.
I bet.
Presumably, this, I guess maybe we don't want to get too technical. The system is called Jira. It's a project management system.
No, get technical. This is the $100 million question, okay. Remember?
I will. It's a project management system, Jira. And it's used by, I think, 10,000 companies around the world. It's very common. And if you ask Atlassian, which is the company that makes this software, they are very keen on telling you this is a very secure system. And it is. You can, the tickets, you open tickets, and then you can adjust that who shall look at this ticket and all the documents that are in the ticket. Of course, if you're working on autopilot software, a service technician in Norway shouldn't be able to access anything. So you only put the maybe 6 people or 7 or maybe 45 people if it's necessary. People who are allowed to access the software. I mean, this ticket, this file. But what we found was in the pocket where it says who should access it, all users. And all users then were being, that's what we could see. We can't say that this was it in all 23,000 documents, but the documents we saw were all users. And so anybody in Tesla could access this. And when you're right to ask this question, you're not the first one to ask this question. Though inside Tesla, people were warning about this. We later found in the same file, the same files, that years ago, there were 2 different warnings of people saying, this can be, we have to stop this. And they were ignored.
Which is fascinating because there is a little bit of a parallel with Snowden, because you referred to the source as a service technician just now in Norway. And of course, Edward Snowden was just a contractor at the National Security Agency.
Or Chelsea Manning with the...
or Chelsea Manning. So
yeah.
Isn't it fascinating that these highly sophisticated organizations, I mean, one being the NSA, which is the top eavesdropping outfit in the world, and Tesla, which is the cutting-edge technology company, and they're not managing their own cybersecurity and allowing journalists like you.
It's mind-boggling. I if you want me to spitball, maybe it's because because Musk is so keen on speed, and he doesn't want anything to slow him down. Just like he doesn't want any laws to slow him down or any regulations. That's a different topic. But maybe that's it. Of course, it's incredibly dangerous for Tesla. I mean, imagine somebody less friendly would have gotten that prototype and sold it to, I don't know, Volkswagen or Ford or something. I'm sure there's buyers out there for Tesla's new secret project. That didn't happen. Yeah.
I imagine you say Tesla didn't really respond aggressively, but you must have been quite paranoid during the 6 months when you were working on it. I know when we were doing Snowden, we were working in a bunker with computers, none of which had ever been used before. None of them were connected to the internet. They were all air-gapped. At the end of the project, we destroyed all the computers. We were so paranoid about the sort of countermeasures. You must have been very paranoid about
didn't quite go that far, but of course we were in constant talks with our lawyers, and we had outside counsel. We had American lawyers look into this because, again, the richest man in the world on the stock market, Tesla was worth more than all the other car companies in the world combined. I mean, it was the first $1 trillion company, and definitely the first auto manufacturer. So the idea of anybody suing us if we get something wrong was just very, very unattractive. And but like I said, when Tesla said you must destroy this data, you must not use it, we were really happy.
And just under German law, I mean, you were not faced with the conundrum that your lawyers said, well, this is commercially sensitive information, that it's proprietary, it's confidential information held by the company. So actually, you don't have any right to publish. What was your answer to that?
Public safety. Because, I mean, Tesla had sold at that time 6 million cars. This was showing that there was something seriously questionable about this autopilot software. and it had to go out into public, and to contrast Elon Musk's words with his own internal communications about this was not a question. I mean, of course it was a question, but we answered that in so, of course, our lawyers also had to question themselves. Okay, German law, we understand this, we can do this. What if he sues us in the US? What if he sues us in France or Japan or wherever he likes? Because he could do that. He sells his car around the world. And but I'm happy our lawyers came to the conclusion we can print, and we did print, and we've never been questioned again.
Could I ask a couple of questions about the whistleblower? So what do you think the whistleblower's motive was?
Wow.
Because you didn't pay him.
No, we didn't pay him.
Perhaps he had more than one motive.
Yeah, more than one. He was, I mean, in one word, revenge. He was not a Tesla critic to start with. Quite the opposite. He's a Polish guy, and he went to Norway specifically and only to work for Elon Musk. He was always fascinated with Elon Musk, always fascinated with Tesla. He thought Tesla was the best company in the world. He thought Musk was the best businessman in the world. He was building a better planet. All this electronic, he's a tech guy, and it was his dream to work there. So when he found the job offering, he quit his other job, which was paying him more than Tesla would, and he started at Tesla. He called himself a Musk disciple. So this whole thing of Tesla being a cult, that's not something that comes from outside the company. People inside Tesla say he's our Jesus. And everybody will tell you Tesla is Musk and Musk is Tesla. So he comes to work, and the first day he finds he doesn't get the right tools he has to work with. Everything is kind of strange, kind of not shady, maybe just amateurish, really. And his colleagues will tell him, yeah, that happened to us too. And nobody tells him really what to do. They just, the boss comes and says, just do what the guy next to you does. So it was a little bit strange for him, but still he was extremely happy to be working there. And then that's at the end of 2018. And then in March 2019, something incredible happens. There's a car show in Lillestrøm in Norway, where the new Model Y, I think at the time, comes out. And he's in this showroom, and there's a curtain in the middle of the showroom. On the left side, the potential customers are looking at these great new cars and touching them, and everybody's really happy. On the other side of the curtain, people, the service technicians like Lukáš, that's his name, are still working on tightening the last screws and something like that. So suddenly he's working there, and suddenly he feels something in his back, a heat in his back, and a sudden smell in his nose, and he turns around and the car is burning. One of the new cars is burning. A colleague had manipulated a booster for the car to be charging faster, and forgot to take it out, so it turned into flames. And he runs over, he reaches into the car, burns his own hand, pulls out the booster, and prevents a catastrophe. So he's being brought into the hospital to treat his wounds. And the boss of Tesla Norway then writes an email to Elon Musk. Says, Elon, we had a slight problem here. I just want you to know. But we had a hero. If it wasn't for the heroic effort of Lukáš, things would have been worse. And maybe, I'm sure he would like some warm words from you. And Elon, being Elon Musk, he says anybody in the company should talk to anybody. He doesn't care for hierarchies. That's what he says, at least. He writes an email to Lukáš, who becomes then our whistleblower later, and says, thank you for saving the day. And Lukáš writes back, explaining what happened. And Elon Musk says, oh, that's interesting. And if you have anything else that we should look at, mail me. And that's the big misunderstanding. I mean, you know Americans. He's South African, but I'm pretty sure he didn't mean it the way that Lukáš took it. Because Lukáš said, okay, the boss now wants me to... I mean, he was in heaven. Tesla was his dream employer, and Musk was his big idol. And now he's actually in touch with Elon Musk, and Elon Musk asked him, what can we do better? So he was in heaven. So let me start making a list of all the things that are wrong here, because there were a lot of things, and they didn't have the right tools. The safety measurements were not being taken seriously. So he makes a list. Next morning, his boss is in his office saying, Are you crazy? What are you doing? What do you think Elon Musk will do when he sees? Stop writing to Elon Musk. And if he asks you to write him before you send anything, I want to see it first. But Lucas is not that kind of guy. He writes back to Elon Musk and says, my boss wants to see my email, and kind of saying, maybe this guy is not part of the solution. Maybe he's part of the problem of what's going on here. And then Elon Musk writes back, I'm sorry, but I can't read these emails. I can only tend to important stuff. And then Lucas is like, what? How can this happen? Doesn't he care what is happening? The safety of his employees and the safety of his cars. 2 weeks later, he sits at his work laptop and notices it goes slow, very slow. So he opens up the task manager and sees what programs are running in the background, and he finds a software called Code 42, which is eating up like 80% of the CPU, of the processing power. And he doesn't know what Code 42 is, so he Googles it, and then he finds out Code 42 is a software companies use to or against employees that are a threat to the company. 2 weeks after he's the hero of the day and Elon Musk is thanking him for saving the day, he's considered to be a threat. And then it all derails. He's getting reprimands. He's being demoted. He has to work in the cellar. He has a nervous breakdown. He gets sick. Finally, he gets fired. And in between there, he starts to look at, because he knows a fight is coming, job fight, labor dispute. And so he wants to find information about his boss at first. So he puts the name of his boss, and he comes across this Excel sheet, and he opens it. And he sees this has information about his boss, but also about 700,000 or 100,000 other people. Why is he able to look at? He's a tech guy, so he says this couldn't be. Why? He knows his rank. He's on the lowest rank. Why should I be able to open this file? So he starts looking for more and looking for more, and he ends up with this 100 gigabytes worth of stuff. And because he's so angry at Tesla and so disappointed, really, from the way I just described, his journey from this disciple to threat. He collects all this data, and then he alerts the authorities. He calls the Norwegian authorities, the German authority, because the only Tesla factory in Europe is in Germany. The Dutch, because officially the headquarters of Europe are in the Netherlands. He emails the SEC and FTC, and he never hears back from anybody. And then he starts going to journalists. He goes to American journalists first, but he's not happy with what they do with the story, what he thinks is the story, and no one there, spends 6 months on it and doesn't really see the full scope. And then he kind of bounces around the globe until, really by chance, which is then our great luck, he ends up calling my colleague in Tokyo, and my colleague calls me, and then we start working.
What are your responsibilities to a whistleblower now? So he's clearly, the story's not finished for him. He's got the Norwegian police after him, and the consequences for him, as they are with most whistleblowers, can be quite serious. What are you still in touch with him? What's your duty of care?
Yeah, we're still in touch, very much so. And I was the first person he called once he got his phone back from when he was ready. His house was ready, home. It's a small home. And Well, we keep reporting on his status. No, we cannot pay him because that's not what any journalist would do. We keep reporting on how he's doing, what he's doing, how his legal battles are going.
Can you pay his legal fees?
No, we can't do that. One thing I did do, and maybe I'm not sure if that's completely in the white, I did make sure he got a lawyer. He wasn't as smart as he is. He wasn't able to convey his story in a way that would make sense to somebody who has never heard it before. It's a long story, convoluted story, and us being journalists, we know how to condense stuff. So I called around to see if I know somebody who knows a lawyer in Norway, and that guy ended up.
Just to be a bit provocative, I mean, I understand the ethical stance from your point of view, but I mean, people do criticize big media organizations. They say, well, you've milked this guy dry. Mm-hmm. He's risked everything for you. And you then get high and mighty and say, well, my ethics don't allow me to help him. Do you ever feel that there's some responsibility on behalf of the media organization to do a bit more?
Well, I think if we would start having a financial relationship, that would open us up to a lot of criticism that would be justifiable. And if you say if he takes money from you, how can you still report on him? That and the other thing was, it was completely up to him. He wanted to remain anonymous. It had to be. I told him, if we use this data, they will find out who you are, because nobody else at Tesla, most likely nobody. I mean, I didn't know, but I was presuming.
So you warned him of the risks. That's important.
Yes, I said, if we do this, they will find you. So what shall we do? And he said, no, I want you to write the story. Nobody had foreseen that it would only take 6 well, actually, they started. As soon as we started asking questions to the employee, they started in investigations. We know that now. So they were investigating for months before they found him. But so his home was raided. And then he said, maybe that's more in that was a way of helping, I guess. His lawyer then said, well, you can fight this as a whistleblower, and in Norway, the Norwegian law grants a lot of leeway for whistleblowers. There's a lot of protection. But you have to be a whistleblower. And his lawyer then said, best way to establish yourself as a whistleblower if there's a newspaper saying you're a whistleblower. I mean, if your front page, your face is there. So in November, we published a huge portrait of his and told everything I now said in a short way. We published his whole life story, basically. And that worked well, because a month later he already won an award for whistleblowing here in London. He was awarded an award as a whistleblower. And since then, his legal position has really strengthened, and he's won against Tesla. That doesn't mean he's getting money or even that his life is back on track. It's not. It's completely. It's derailed.
But just to push you a tiny bit further, because I understand, I do understand all the reticence. But if you were to pay his legal fees now, nobody could say that compromised in any way the integrity of the story, because this is sort of, after the event, you've published the story, full integrity, you didn't pay him anything, but now he's faced with the consequences. They're not going to take you on because you're big and powerful. Would anybody say there's a moral darkness about the news organization at least paying his legal fees?
That's what I'm told by my superiors. Luckily,
it's above your pay grade. That's what you're trying to say.
Luckily, it was pro bono. So the lawyers,
okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, eventually there was going to be a bill, and so forth and so forth. But Yeah, I know, I understand the questions, but at the time there wasn't.
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Sönke, it's a fascinating story. I've just one last question, which is, what are your impressions of Elon Musk based on all that reading of the data?
Well,
what are the big takeaways?
Well, I still won't say. I mean, I'm far off from saying he's a fraud. He's a genius. Obviously, I've spent so much time now looking at his life, looking at his work. He's obviously a really, really smart guy, and also business acumen is great. But still, the thing is with Elon Musk, he's always promising more than he's delivering. He's delivered so much, which is very strange. Who else has created a car company in the last 5 decades in the Western world? Nobody. He's done it, and he's turned it into $1 trillion company. Who else has put people into space and then gotten them back? It's Elon Musk. But Elon Musk is always promising more, and then he's 10 years ago he said automated driving, full self-driving is a solved problem. That's the quote from 10 years ago. And he never takes responsibility, for example. I don't know if we have time for one small thing. There's a company here in London 130 years ago. It's an interesting piece. It's called Cabolic Smokeball Company.
Famous legal case.
Famous legal case. They were selling balloons filled with gas. And the promise was, if you inhale this gas, it's an acid, you're immune to the Russian flu, which back then was far worse than Corona was.
Russian flu or Spanish flu?
Russian.
Right.
Russian flu.
Yeah, much more dangerous than the Spanish flu, yeah.
And the promise was, the marketing promise, the promise of the company, if you inhale this gas and you get sick, you'll get 100 pounds, which 130 is a lot of money. And we are depositing this 100 pounds right now, so we're serious. So somebody inhaled that, I think it was a woman, inhaled it and got sick and went to court. And the company argued, this London company, said, no, that was just marketing. It was puffery. It was clear that wasn't serious. It was puffery. The company lost the case because the judge back then in 1983, I think, said, no, it's very serious that you were serious. Very clear that you were serious because you went all the way to depositing 100 pounds. So why am I saying this? 130 years later, the words puffery defense turn up again in a class action suit in California of a guy who bought a Tesla and said, I was under the impression this would drive me to my work and from work by itself, and it still hasn't. And then Tesla comes up with this puffery defense and said, it's clear that this is marketing, that this isn't serious. Actually, there's anybody who believes Elon Musk, that's on him. And the judge says, yes, actually, that's true. It's clear that that's puffery. And Tesla wins the case.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Sönke. It's been a real pleasure to have you on Media Confidential.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we should just remind people that the book is called The Tesla Files, The Inside Story of Musk's Empire, a whistleblower, a leak, a fight for truth. And it is £22. Worth every penny. This interview was from the latest episode of Media Confidential, a podcast brought to you by Prospect Magazine. To listen to the full episode, click on the link below. And if you want full access to Prospect Magazine, go to prospectmagazine.co.uk.